and welcome to This Week in Laker Football, your exclusive weekly look into the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm Tyler Keefe, joined as always by head coach Zach Hilbers. The Lakers finishing off their OAA-Red division season, not the way we were hoping for it to go, a 14-38 loss to Oxford, where they really played their perfect style of football in that game. Evaluate from just on a summarizing point, just how well Oxford played and ultimately what brought that to a loss on Thursday last week.
Yeah, they deserve all the credit because they did, everything that I guess they wanted to, and it's like has been their identity for years. They just came right at us and ran right at us, and we had a bad job all around of as coaches preparing for the week and their game plan, and then obviously adjusting to it, what was happening, and it was we've had some tough losses on the road before and really close, hard-fought games, and this was the first one where we just didn't put a good effort out there. It didn't put a good performance on the field, and I told the kids, like, look, I'm never embarrassed because of you guys, but we as a group should be embarrassed of the product that we put out there, like as a program, because it wasn't to our standards, and that is honestly taking nothing away from Oxford, who came and did what they had to do.
And so keeping in that mindset of there's nothing really more that we could have done to prevent them from being as on point as they were, what could you have done as a team differently to maybe have been more competitive and play more of, as you said, West Bloomfield's brand of football?
You know, you have to match their physicality, and part of my mistake last week was their big explosion plays had been in the play-action game, and they did get one at the end of the game there, but we really focused on shutting down those explosion plays for a lot of the week. And, one thing that becomes pretty glaringly obvious after the fact is you don't need explosion play action when you're running the ball right down someone's throat for the entire game, which they did. So obviously I wish I could do that all over and kind of change our emphasis for the week just to try to match them. Instead, we thought maybe our defensive alignment could give them enough trouble in the run game, and that was not the case.
From a game planning standpoint, especially in process, you have those natural breaks, the quarter breaks certainly at the half, and where you can kind of reevaluate your game plan based on what's happening on the field. But when a guy's got 150 yards and a touchdown in the first half against you, has 3 touchdowns and over 200 yards rushing, how do you adjust to that, or can you even adjust to that mid-game when they're having that kind of a performance on the field? Yeah,
he's a really good player. Give him his credit. I thought he was a really good player last year. But to answer your question, yeah, you absolutely can. And in some ways, we kind of did. And coming out of halftime there, we got them into 3 third-and-longs, and they converted all of them. One of them with a quarterback scramble. We did a really bad job with containment, and then 2 of them through the air. And usually you get them throwing the ball in 3rd and long, you got them out of their comfort zone. But they made the plays they needed to. But part of getting them in 3rd and long is doing a good job on 1st and 2nd down. So we did make some adjustments, but by then we're behind in the game a little bit. We let them convert anyway, and they still went down and got a field goal at that point and put points on the board.
Taking a step back, you look at that early portion of the game and that 14-38 loss last week, Thursday, to Oxford. Back and forth early on, very similar to what we saw the week before at home against Lake Orion. Had an opportunity to tie things up. A couple of times you were successful on that, getting into the end zone. But ultimately, and this kind of summarizes a lot of the issues offensively in the game, those penalties really set you back. How critical were those to taking away those opportunities that you had to be competitive with that Oxford team on Thursday?
Yeah, definitely frustrating, definitely deflating to morale. And if I'm not mistaken, they scored their first drive. We scored our first drive. We actually stopped them on 4th down. So we would have gone up 14-7 on those 2 touchdowns that were called back. But, you got to play through that stuff. Sure, it would have been nice to have a 14-7 lead, and maybe you're playing with a little bit more confidence, and, the game could have been different. But when things didn't go our way, we didn't dig our heels in and fight back, I thought. And as a staff, as players on the field, we didn't perform at the level it takes to win in this league, at a high enough level. So that's really going to be our focus this week, is just matching physicality and asserting our will, and really trying to be less reactive, take our fight metaphorically, obviously, to the opponent.
And it's one of the many cliches you hear in the game of football. Having that short-term memory, it's usually associated with quarterbacks like yourself or like Beau and Jamal, but that really does apply to the whole team, because you got to take the bad from last week and talk about it and think about it and really learn from it. Yeah. But you also don't have time to dwell on it. You got one extra day leading up to that Friday football game from that Thursday football game, but these last two games are really critical. So how do you sort of mix and match that to get yourself well prepared, but also learn a tough lesson from Oxford?
Yeah, we spent Friday through Sunday kind of reviewing last Thursday's game, looking at the mistakes we made and trying to be very critical of it. And we told the kids, once Monday happens, we're done. Like, that is over with. It's in the past. We're not going to dwell on it. We're not going to let Oxford beat us 2 straight weeks. We're going to be ourselves this week, and our back's up against the wall, so we got to get out there and do what we need to do.
It's often when you see what a team is really made of, when they have nothing left to lose but their season, and that's on the line for the Lakers these last 2 weeks. Seaholm on the road this week, Roseville next week. Doesn't get any easier from here for the Lake Show. We'll take a break on This Week in Laker Football. On the other side, one of the key leaders that's behind those last 2 weeks of this campaign is quarterback Beau Jackson. He'll join me after this break. Stay with us. It's This Week in Laker Football on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Hendricks out of the shotgun, 2 split out to either side, 1 in the backfield. Wildcat up to Johnson. He's going to get close, but he's not going to get there. The Lakers push him back, and it's a huge stop for the L-Boys.
We've got news. Civic Center TV just reached 1 million views on YouTube. Over the years, we've filed over 10,000 stories. We've covered local parades and events, life-saving efforts by first responders, remarkable accomplishments of local individuals, state championship athletic teams, and our area's history, government, and the people who volunteer to make our community better. Civic Center TV on cable, online, and on social media, now with over 1 million views on YouTube. Civic Center TV, thanks for watching. You're 1 in a million.
Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football, your exclusive weekly look into the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm Tyler Kieft, joined by one of the Lakers' senior quarterbacks, Beau Jackson, with us on the program this week. Coming off of another impressive game personally against Oxford, although the team didn't pick up a win. 73% passing in that game, 167 yards. It seems like you've really come into your own in the last few weeks. What's been the difference maker these last 3 or 4 games to really get you comfortable in this offense and have you firing on every cylinder?
I would just say it's mainly having confidence in all of my players, getting the ball out to them just on short little passes, just completions, moving the ball down the field. That's all.
And last week against Oxford, it did seem like those connections were starting to, again, be really strong between you and Elijah in particular over the last few weeks. You've made a number of connections with him. What's your relationship been like with him leading into the season? It's your first season at West Bloomfield, but it seems like you guys have been playing for years.
Yeah, I mean, it started in the summer when I first decided I was going to transfer, and then leading up the off season. But then it's not only been Elijah, but then it's also been players like Cam Flowers, Jaden Allos, Josh Tate, and just all of them I've worked through all throughout the season. It's really coming together and showing out on the field.
You talk about transferring in. It's your first year. It's your only year at West Bloomfield High School with the Lakers, but you're not unfamiliar with really successful programs and being the starting quarterback and really the lead in that quarterback room in the past, having come from Novi Detroit Catholic Central. How did that help you maybe ease that transition into this program and build that familiarity with players that have been in the varsity squad for a number of years?
Well, I think it just starts with I've been with 3 different offensive coordinators throughout my high school career, starting with Kevin Glenn my freshman and sophomore year, and then having Coach Lusky and having a new coach, Coach Rise, this year. But I think it's just been you take bits and pieces from every coach and then you put them all together into one simple formula.
Beau Jackson, the Lakers quarterback, with us as West Bloomfield's coming off of a 14-38 loss to Oxford. 2 weeks left in the season, both on the road with Seaholm this week and then Roseville next week to cap off the 2024 regular season. And you talk about learning from each of those coordinators, learning from each of your years of experience at the varsity level. How do you translate that now to being in a senior role and with a relatively young offense across the board, many who are coming up to varsity for the first season and helping them continue to grow as your team tries to compete for a state title?
It gives me kind of leadership boost, I would say. Having seen varsity play style for 4 years, I would say, and then playing in it for 3 years. But then it also just me being a leader, giving them confidence, encouraging, and then us working out through all our challenges together one by one. It's not I, it's we. And I think it's just been super beneficial to us. I mean, yes, we've lost to some tough opponents, but I think growing and going forward, we're more together as a team and not just individuals.
And take us through some of those 4 games that you have lost so far this season, because really 3 of them have been pretty tough losses, with Groves, with Clarkston, and with Oxford, all in their own different ways, and that Adams loss being kind of different because it was so close and it came down to those last couple of drives. How have you kept the team focused on learning from those losses as opposed to dwelling on them, especially as you're looking toward in a questionable playoff position given these last 2 weeks coming up?
Yeah, I think the big thing about the losses was just us shooting ourselves in the foot. It comes with a lot of different things, I would say, on all 3 sides of the ball. But just growing from it, I mean, playing our football, just, football hasn't changed at all. And you need guys to make plays, you need players, you need everything in order to be successful, especially in the OAA-Red.
And how has this level of competition in the Red, you talked about that. There was a chance before last week that all 5 teams could have been even at the end of the season. Ultimately, the team that beat you on Thursday last week are the champions. How has that helped you prepare for a really high-pressure last 2 weeks of the regular season, and then hopefully beyond that, several weeks of football in the postseason?
Yeah, going into the season, I never played against an OAA-Red team, so I didn't know much about them. But throughout the season, I've learned that they're really heavy on the run game, and that can kind of milk the clock, and you'll have a short game if not proficient. So I think offensively, it's helped us be effective with our drives and scoring opportunities.
Ultimately, football almost always will come down to the battles in the trenches, whether it was last week going up against a really tough O-line in Oxford that was able to set up opportunities for a really high-caliber running back in Luke Johnson, or even just referencing your own team. That offensive line has given you, has given Jamal, has given Josh so many opportunities throughout the year. To speak to your relationship with them and how they help to ultimately be the catalyst for this offense.
Yeah, I mean, of course you said it all starts in the trenches, and I think a big thing is just quarterback O-line relationship has to be 100%, I think. So I think it helps build that trust between the two, but build relationships, trust, confidence, and then just belief in one another with going in throughout the game.
This game has so many different abilities for people to shine in starring roles, and certainly leading amongst those are the quarterbacks in most cases. So as much as your job is to keep everybody else centered and focused on the task at hand, how do you do that for yourself?
I think it is my thought is cool, calm, collected. I don't try to get too high or too low. I kind of try to stay in the middle, and that's what kind of I would say keeps me going, because I think about it next play. I think about it great play, next play, and whatever happens, happens. But we move on from it. It's not the end of the world. Football has 150 plays or so, and you can't let it dwell on you and snowball effect.
Beau Jackson, senior quarterback for the Lakers, with us on This Week in Laker Football. We'll see plenty of him on the field in Birmingham this week, Friday, as the Lakers take on Seaholm. More information on our coverage will be on civiccentertv.com/Lakersports. Beau, as you head into these final 2 weeks, what are some of those key focal points that you're looking forward to pick up hopefully a couple of wins and put yourself in position for playoff football?
I think the big thing is just play West B football. Going into Oxford, that was our focus point, and we came out with the win. And I think going through tough losses, big wins, I think the main takeaway is play our football, run the ball, pass well, Defense gets stops, turnovers, all that. Special teams get the ball back, put them in bad field position, and I'd say evidently we'll come up with the win.
Sounds a lot of like familiar things we've seen over the past several weeks for the Lakers. Some of those wins, some of those not. We'll have the answer for that result on Friday night in Birmingham. Beau, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll take a break on This Week in Laker Football. On the other side, we'll preview that matchup coming up in Birmingham, a second matchup of the year against those Birmingham teams, this time going on the road to Seaholm. Stay with us. It's This Week in Laker Football. First down and 10 for the Lakers at their 22-yard line. Shotgun snap to Jackson. Will hand the ball off. Outside, Josh Tate to the 30, up to the 35, and skipping toward the 40, just shy as he rolls out of bounds.
Live, local, social. Dive into your community with The Splash Live. Coverage of events and exciting developments in the greater West Bloomfield area. Join Tyler Keefe, Kevin McIntosh, and the rest of our staff live out on the street or in our studio. Weekdays live on Comcast Channel 15 or on AT&T at Channel 99. Watch us online too on Facebook at Civic Center TV 15, on YouTube at Civic Center TV, or on our website, civiccentertv.com.
Hello, my name is Danya Bazzi. I'm the superintendent of West Bloomfield School District. I want to congratulate Civic Center TV on hitting the amazing milestone of 1 million viewers. Your involvement in our community doesn't go unnoticed. We thank you for keeping our residents and community engaged in the latest and greatest news and information. I'm Danya Bazzi, and I'm proud to be 1 in a million.
Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football, your exclusive weekly look into the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside head coach Zach Hilbers. Lakers head back on the road for the final 2 weeks of the season. That begins that campaign this week on the road, 7 o'clock Friday kickoff against Birmingham Seaholm, a team that in their own right has been red hot all season long. They're ranked in the top 10 in the Division II playoff points coming into this week. They ultimately lost their division last week in a tough 23-24 matchup against North Farmington. What do we know about Jim DeWald's team coming into this week, and how big of a challenge are they going to be bringing your Lakers on Friday night?
No, it's definitely a challenge, just like every other game we've kind of had. They're used to winning. I know they might be in a different division than us, but you know, when you're used to winning games, there's an expectation that comes with that, and they definitely carry that. If you look at them last year, they beat Groves back-to-back weeks in Week 9, Week 1 of the playoffs, putting up a lot of points. And you know, you're a different team every year, and they got some different kids, but the results are still the same for them. And they lost a tough one last week, really at the end of the game. They had a good chance to win, didn't go their way. But you know, they're still 6-1, and they've won a lot of games, and they're going to use it as a measuring stick for them to get ready to start the playoffs. You know, being in a Division II team playing us as a Division I team, and they've done it before. They've beaten, you know, bigger schools that are playoff teams, so we know that they can do it, and yeah, we know the challenge that it's involved.
Yeah, D2 is no cupcake in the state of Michigan, especially when you come out of the OAA with Harper Woods having won the state championship last season. Birmingham Groves, one of the top teams in the state. The Lakers very familiar with that. And Seaholm standing at 6-1, that loss last week, their first of the season. So not only do you have your motivation of your loss against Oxford, they got their own motivation coming in playing this week, and they got the advantage of doing that at home. So how much more does that kind of go back to what we talked about in the first segment, cleaning up last week, but really being hyper-focused on those 11 players you're matching up against play-by-play on Friday night?
Yeah, you really just have to look forward because, you know, their offense, while it might be similar in some ways to Rochester Adams, the team we played earlier, it's unique and it's different, and they do their own thing and they have their own twist on it, and they execute it at a really high level. And the thing with that offense is, for whatever you do on defense, there's going to be an answer to it and a spin-off. So we just got to be prepared to adjust and counter-adjust and do everything we can to try to slow them down.
What's been the positive of going up against such a competitive schedule? Despite the 4 losses, you've had a lot of progress for some of the younger guys that have stepped into big leadership roles. Jaden Allos with the sack last week. Certainly the play of Josh and of Jeremiah on the D-line has been excellent all season long, and that secondary has been incredibly dangerous and underrated for the Lakers. So now how How do you keep fostering that confidence in that defense despite some really tough games against high-caliber offenses as you go up against, as you said, a very unique offense that in some ways can mirror past opponents like Rochester Adams?
Well, you just got to remind them that, like, we've played really good teams, and they've played at a high level. They shut out Rochester Adams in the first half, and until the Adams quarterback was hurt, that was the lowest point total that they had scored all year. They had given up 21 points in the fourth quarter. Not in the fourth quarter. It was the fourth quarter. Clarkson had 21 points on the road, and some of those were a fake punt and a screen right after it out of a really a goofy formation, which, you know, give them credit. But, like, they had stood up against really toe-to-toe with Clarkson's best stuff for 3.5 quarters, and they know that they can do it. It's just about, you know, being consistent with our effort and focus, because we had some lapses in that first half against Oxford, and by the time we figured some things out against their run, it was honestly too late.
On the offensive side, a huge positive over the past few weeks has been the development of the receiving game, of the passing game for the Lakers. Beau Jackson last week, his most accurate game of the season, 167 yards in the air, had a couple of touchdown attempts that were ultimately pulled back by penalties. And you're going up against a team that has been excellent defensively themselves, not allowing more than 2 touchdowns in all but a couple of those games so far this season. So how does that speak to what your offense needs to do this week to put points up on the board, be disciplined, and compete with one of the best defenses in the entire state of Michigan? Yeah,
they play a really good complementary football too. So even though, like you said, their defense is a really strong unit with strong physical kids that they really tackle really well, having their style of offense really helps them out a lot. So if you're an offense that, you know, we make some of those mistakes we've made so far this year, whether it's turning the ball over or just having miscues on third down where we're giving the ball back to them, you know, they can go 6, 7, 8 minutes before you see the ball again. And that helps the defense out when they're not on the field as much. So that's what I mean by complementary football. Their offense helps their defense helps their offense, and they're pretty good at it.
The Lakers going up against Birmingham Seaholm on the road at Seaholm, 7 o'clock kickoff on Friday night. CivicCenterTV.com/LakersSports for more information on how you can catch that game coming up on Friday. For your team, you're looking at these last 2 weeks, even more important at the conclusion of the OAA-Red schedule right now, kind of on the bubble for playoff time. A win over these next 2 weeks, certainly 2 wins in 2 weeks, definitely secures your spot. How does that factor in to the preparation and especially the motivation, more importantly, behind these next couple of games? Yeah,
the motivation's definitely still there. That, you know, like, their goals are still in front of them, and it hasn't gone the way any of us planned through 7 weeks, but it is still right there in front of them. And we kind of saw that last year with Clarkston, who was 4-2, lost their last 3 games, kind of looked like they were limping into the playoffs, but obviously figured it out and was a play or 2 away from competing for a state title. So we just hope to, you know, obviously not wait for week 1 of the playoffs to have that moment now and figure some things out and be hitting. It's really about playing your best football at the end of the year, which we're on the end of the year right now. So it's our time to step up and get it done.
If you learn those lessons at the right time and you have the right opportunity, it leaves 2 more questions for you. Why not us? Why not now? That's certainly the case for the Lakers going into Friday. Coach, any lasting thoughts before we see you and the team go out on the field Friday night in Birmingham?
No, I think you summed it up right there. Why not us? Why not now? That's got to be our mentality. Yeah.
Lakers going to Birmingham on Friday night. Last trip to Birmingham, hopefully for the season for them, unless it's in playoff time. That would be a 7 o'clock kickoff against the Seaholm Maples out of the OAA-Blue division. Catch that on our website, CivicCenterTV.com/LakersSports for more information on our coverage and the coverage of the game on Friday. Then the Lakers next week will cap off the regular season on the road against Roseville. For the entire West Bloomfield Athletic Department and our team over at Civic Center TV, I want to thank you for tuning in to This Week in Laker Football.